Hi, everybody. My name is Brett Blumberg. I'm the Director of Sustainable Events and Analytics at the Green Sports Alliance. On behalf of the entire Alliance team, we hope that you're all continuing to stay well during these really challenging times for our industry. And we just want to thank you for taking the time today to join us. Without further ado, welcome to the Are You Ready to Play webinar, the first webinar in our new educational series aimed at providing our members with the tools and resources that will help our industry get back to work as quickly, as safely, and as sustainably as possible. We have a fantastic lineup today, as you can see on this slide, featuring panelists that will provide the context around our new toolkit and educational series. We will dive into the Green Sports Alliance's newest partnership with the USGBC and its affiliate ARC. We will be answering your burning questions around reentry certification and the options that exist. And finally, providing a walkthrough demo so that you can understand exactly how to get set up in our system and immediately tap into the value that this toolkit will be providing you in your venue or organization. So without any delay, our panel features Roger McClendon, the Executive Director of the Green Sports Alliance, who at this point needs no further introduction. We have Chris Pyke, Vice President of Product at ARC and the behind-the-scenes guru behind our online platform. Scott Jenkins, the General Manager of Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta and a sports greening movement pioneer. And last but not least, we have Jackie Ventura, who's the Director of Arena Management and Administration with the Golden State Warriors. So before we get started here, this is going to be slightly different from our normal webinar format. We're going to be, first off, making, just like usual, all of our webinar recordings and slide decks available after today's session. We'll be sending a follow-up email after the session to make sure that you all have access to these. And as with other recent webinars, you may want to check out on our YouTube page. The entire recording is going to be available there for you to share with your colleagues or friends in the industry. Finally, if you have any other further questions, feel free to email us at info@greensportsalliance.com. And again, quick housekeeping item, our annual summit has been postponed and we will be coming out with an updated date and format by the end of this month about where we're going to be headed with our new Green Sports Alliance Summit. Finally, please save the date for our next webinar on the business case of renewable energy in sport, led by our own Kristen Hansor and featuring an all-star panel of industry experts. So again, this style is going to be fairly different from our traditional. We're going to be starting off with a round robin session with our panelists and then diving into a live demo walkthrough with Chris in our platform, and finally addressing your questions in the Q&A session. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, bring up the panelists, and we can get started. Hi, team. Roger, I guess we'll start with you. Let's set the stage here. Why focus on reentry? And it does seem like a little bit of a left turn that some members may be curious about from our traditional greening operations. So how does this fit into your vision for the next decade of work?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. And before I jump into answering the question, I definitely have to give a shout out to our staff and to our team and to the leadership of Brett for bringing this on. And obviously our board members, Jackie and Scott, as representing, their organizations for providing leadership. And then foremost is the collaboration and the partnership with ARC, which is part of a subsidiary of the United States Green Building Council, for really thinking about how important this collaboration is for us in the advent of COVID-19. And to answer your question directly, we care about the health and safety of our crew, of our fans, obviously of our professional athletes and the folks that we admire to do what they do. And so that's most paramount. And it's part of our vision, and really our mission is about the health and safety of our communities and the people, that we support where we live, work, and play. And so that's really why we jumped into this, is because we didn't want to separate that whole concept of getting us back ready to play around the health and safety of all of the folks and constituents involved. The second component is this is a bigger opportunity for us to think about what our leadership role is, not only to get folks up and running and playing, but think about the impact that sport has on all of us. So the economic impact, the jobs that it creates, just how we feel emotionally, like we get pumped up, we get excited about teams, getting back into it. So it really is, in this advent of what we have, we've got social and environmental challenges in front of us that sports could help bring us out of. And so the sooner we can get back on the field, sooner we can get back, in the lines of the field, I think the better it's going to be for all of us, and it's going to help us. So what, as a leader, the Green Sports Alliance, we went back out to a lot of our members and we asked them, what can we do in this time, other than providing advice and information? What could we bring? What value could we bring around this? And fortunately for us, we had a conversation with Elaine I, who's also on our board, and she brought the opportunity with Chris to have a conversation about how we could collaborate. And, they jumped in. We had the same vision about having this platform, within the time frame come to life. And there's been a lot of work since that conversation and since our announcement in June 10th. So that's really what we're excited about. And we know this can grow into a bigger platform that we'll talk about in the future around sports, sustainability, and performance metrics and measurement.
Great, Roger. Thank you for that. And it looks like we may have lost Chris on the actual video, but I believe you're still there on audio, Chris. So I'll ask you a very similar question. Why is the USGBC and ARC shifted on? There you are on video. So again, why has the USGBC and ARC really shifted focus towards reentry? And specifically, what excites you in supporting the reentry for the sports sector in particular?
Yeah, sorry about that little bandwidth issue, but I think I'm back right now. So, hey, Brett, thanks, and Roger, thanks for teeing that up so nicely. For us, this is really about meeting the moment, and our folks have been, so we've had been working with folks. So ARC's reason that we exist is to measure the operational performance of spaces, buildings, and places around the world. And reentry, hey, we're all living this together. We all want to get back to some new version of normal. And over the last couple of months, our users around the world have come to us and said, hey, what you guys have been doing on human experience, understanding occupant experience and measuring indoor performance has some of the elements we needed for reentry. So based on the interest, we're working with Brett and Roger and the team, we have said, hey, we can adapt the tool set we have in hand to create a practical tool to help do our part to contribute to reentry. And so for us, it really was both our mission, meeting the moment, and leveraging the tools that we could readily adapt and make available to the sporting community. So that's in a nutshell, that's what we're doing here.
Awesome, Chris. Thank you for that. And I guess passing it on to you, Scott, as a facility manager for really one of the largest and most advanced stadiums in the world. Jackie may attest to that, but we'll get to her in a second. Where are you right now in the reentry process? I mean, we saw your stadium conduct blood drives and other community-facing initiatives, but I guess in terms of reentry, what have you done to prepare the stadium, and what do you believe are, outside of government regulations, your primary barriers to reentry?
Yeah, first, let me just echo what everybody said. This is a great opportunity for us, the Green Sports Alliance, to work with ARC. A lot of people coming together to bring a valuable tool at the right time to solve some of these issues. I think I'd start by saying it's a lot of unknown right now, right? This is new territory. Nobody's gone through this before. Our priorities have shifted completely to health and safety, and how do we get back into business? So this is a perfect opportunity to pull together this team of people and to serve our membership. So I'm really excited about that and appreciative of everybody's efforts that we've done this, that you all have done this in such a short amount of time. We're trying to figure out what does that mean? How do we provide a safe environment for our fans, for our associates, for our employees? It's risky. We're looking to see what happens with leagues starting back up without fans. Obviously, that's much easier to manage than inviting people back into our building to watch these events. I was fortunate to be at Atlanta Motor Speedway recently to watch that race, and it was eerily quiet around the venue, but just as exciting as ever on the track. And to watch the TV broadcast and to kind of look over my shoulder and see that it was really a ghost town around there, but that sport was back. So we're trying to figure out what that looks like. Safety is the #1 priority. Sanitization is a huge priority, and it fits in well with our green cleaning initiatives that we've been working on. Obviously, we're mostly, safety when it comes to indoor air quality is a priority, and efficiency, but I think efficiency is taking a backseat to safety. So when you talk about indoor air quality and talk about green cleaning, it's a perfect opportunity for us to engage and move that conversation up to the top of the pile and the top of the priority And this platform and these resources are a perfect time and place for us to engage. So I'm excited about the opportunity. I think everybody feels a certain level of stress and anxiety over where are we going. We obviously all have a lot of financial constraints and pressure right now that none of us thought we would face. And we're looking for some comfort, some guidance, some advice, and this tool and these folks coming together in this effort is going to give us something that's, I think, very valuable to our members, our athletes, and our fans. So excited that we're on this journey. There's other folks doing some other great things, and the nice thing about this is you'll learn. This isn't meant to be the answer. It's meant to give us a guidebook, a playbook of how to advance, and we can pull in other resources to help support what we're doing and give us all the confidence and comfort to move forward in a really uncertain period. So I'm excited with the effort and look forward to hearing what others have to say. And Chris, you're a rock star on presenting. Every time I've heard you speak, you boil it down into really simple things, and this tool is meant to be a simple roadmap. How do I get from here to there? And let's do this in a way that provides value and confidence, and especially in a time when we're all under a lot of pressure financially and otherwise. So I'm learning just like everyone else.
Thanks, Scott. We're really excited too, and excited to have your venue use this tool and our educational series. Jackie, I'll pass this one off to you. I mean, managing, again, one of the newer stadiums or arenas in our industry, what do you see as your moment in time? Where are you, and what do you see as a barrier to reentry, and maybe how do you see yourself using this tool in the immediate future?
Yeah, to echo everyone else, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk on this topic now that the NBA has given us at least some dates that we can anticipate of looking forward to starting the next season. Unfortunately, Golden State isn't in this year's playoffs, but it was a good year to have a bad year is what that's become my motto. So we won't be welcome back to Orlando to go head to head in the playoff series, but we are looking forward to that December restart. What we have been doing during this great pause is those of us in the event industry know that we don't always have the luxury of time. So we have really taken a step backwards and really appreciated the time for what it is. San Francisco and California in general was one of the first areas in the country to issue shelter-in-place orders and to declare state of emergencies, and really seeing what was coming at us when the rest of the country, to a certain extent, was not there. We look at the difference between the shelter-in-place order being issued in the Bay Area and the shelter-in-place order being issued in New York City. It was a difference of about 9 days, I think. And caseloads, the deaths are just, the difference in the two cities and the two coasts is too large to ignore. It clearly made a difference on the West Coast. But it also presents what I think is one of our barriers, the nature of our geography. We're going to be held to a much different standard in the Bay Area and in California in general. And regardless of what the national guidelines, the CDC recommendations come in, there's going to be very specific guidelines to California and the Bay Area that are potentially going to be more stringent than the rest of the country. So we need to be cognizant of that. And we're working very closely with the mayor's office and with our public health department to make sure that we're aligned and that we're transparent with what these initiatives are going to be. We've also taken the time to analyze and restructure our department. So I'm sorry I didn't update my bio, Brett, before you put it out there, but we have created a new department. It's facility health and hygiene, completely focused on what this is like over the course of potentially the next 12 to 24 months. I'll be leading that department along with a manager. The custodial company, we're going to bring on an industrial hygienist, an environmentalist, and partner with the local public health department, hopefully get an epidemiological consultant on board, giving us kind of that weight to what we're doing and that integrity to what we're doing, because the other barrier, I think, is going to be fear, right? We have to make fans, our employees, our athletes comfortable coming back to the buildings, and we really need to actively show them that they are coming back to the safest, cleanest facility in town. And how do we do that? We need third-party validation. We need medical experts. We need to use the medical community at our front door as partners to really showcase that to everybody, that we're safe. Come back in, because it's going to be hard to get people back in that door after so many months at home.
Great, Jackie. Thank you for that. And Chris, maybe you can speak to some of addressing the fear through communication and by rooting this initiative in the standards from the authority agencies out there. So I guess, but before we dive into the actual walkthrough of the tool, can you explain a little bit more about maybe what the criteria was to develop this tool and how you foresee it assisting in venues like Scott's and Jackie's to meet those concerns and opportunities?
Yeah, I appreciate that, Brett. I think that just to echo what folks, this is really about both. There is technical guidance, but it is as much about learning in real time and building confidence through a degree of transparency in the right way. And so, from my perspective, I view this as really as fundamentally this is a process problem. We need to link our management intentions with how people experience the space, and as we begin to get people back in the space, to constantly be reevaluating our management process. And so from my perspective, what we're trying to do with how ARC powers this initiative and others is to be able to create that feedback loop so that we're creating the best possible management regime we can today. We're making sure that people experience that management regime as we intend it, and that when possible, we're creating objective measures. And at the same time, I think we're all very aware that we have authorities. We know what, whether it's MLB or the CDC or our European colleagues or folks around the world, they are giving us guidance. The problem is that guidance is changing week to week. It's sometimes contradictory. And that unfortunately isn't going to change on the really short term. It's going to probably get worse before it gets better. But the thing that we can do is share our management intentions, share what's working, and create feedback loops that are quicker than they used to be. So rather than doing something every year, maybe we're talking about doing something every week, if not every day. And so those kind of things. So the bottom line is, I think that by thinking about this as a process and trying to make that process iterative and learning over time, and then working with GSA as a convening organization to help us share our learnings, that makes a ton of sense to me, and it's very realistic given this moment. And to Scott's point, we need this to meet the moment around, hey, we don't have the resources we might have under other circumstances in some ways, and so we need this to be accessible, and we need it to be deployable fast. And so, anyway, those are some thoughts about how we're thinking about this moment as opposed to others.
Well, that's really good insight, Chris. And Roger, to feed off of that, and Scott mentioned early on a playbook, how will this be more than just an online platform to upload your data and operational procedures? I guess, what's the full offering from Green Sports Alliance, and are there features outside of the actual online platform that the Green Sports Alliance will be investing in to provide that value to the members? I think you're muted, Roger. Let's see if we can unmute you there.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Thanks. Absolutely. We want to provide additional value and understand what the needs of our members are. And as it was eloquently stated here, it is complex to a certain degree. So all this information that's coming in, it's not just a metric and measurement type of tool. It is a project management opportunity. It is to consolidate all these different inputs coming in a way to roll that up to your supervisors and your management team, or to explain to your crew and to others how you tie into so you can operate effectively. So we love the ability of a platform that has been proven to be focused on this COVID reentry, to be accessible and affordable to our whole membership base. And in addition to that, if you want to roll up reports as you start to get these best practices and share them across teams, across leagues, and across our whole sports industry platform, we have the capability to do that as well. So we love that it'll expand beyond COVID, because we're hoping, keeping our fingers crossed, that we get out of COVID within a certain period of time. But what you'll be left with was a very strong sustainability performance management tool that cuts across everything that we stand for as an industry. And that is around, water efficiency, energy efficiency, transportation, continuing health and wellness, either from, day to day to a special event to, across the whole platform. So that's what we're excited about. And we know we have a great partner in Chris and his team and ARC and USGBC. So we're proud to be a partner.
Great, thanks, Roger. So I guess let's talk about certification now. It's something that our members have been asking about for several months now. How can we begin to communicate the effectiveness of our operational procedures and changes to reflect the health and safety changes of our venues? So Jackie, you mentioned, first of all, the need for third-party certification. And I guess I'll start with you. Do you see your facility wanting to get certified for reentry? And what are some of those conversations that your team is having?
Yes, absolutely. So we are one of the early adopters of the GBAC STAR accreditation supported by ISSA. The Dolphins made a big splash about a month and a half ago. They were pursuing it, and that's kind of what brought it to the forefront. And it really has the backing of ISSA, which is recognized in the industry as one of the leaders in sanitation and in cleaning efforts, right? So we feel that's going to be a great third-party validation of our efforts once we achieve that accreditation. I'm also excited to see the ARC platform being used for this, because we all know USGBC and the LEED criteria and how well known that is in the industry, and just kind of the brand power that USGBC and LEED brings. So I think it's another tool that will be very beneficial in giving people confidence to come to the venue.
And that's really good insight, Jackie. And before passing it on to Chris to really understand how LEED is integrating in the reentry process, Scott, I guess same question to you. What's the current conversation with Mercedes-Benz Stadium in regards to the ability to communicate your efforts through some sort of certification or communication platform?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely critical. And when we heard about the Dolphins plan and we learned about what ISSS had created with the GBAC program, of course, right away we were like, oh, hey, that's great. That's something we need. And we wanted to learn what that was. And then shortly after that, WELL came out, and WELL has a program that's similar. And so one thing that I think that you'll learn today is ARC is something that you can use as a roadmap and a guide to get you moving in that direction. And if you choose to use GBAC, you can plug that into it. If you choose to use WELL, you can plug that into it. If you choose to use neither, you have a roadmap. And so I think everyone would like to have something on the wall, or something that they could tell their fans and their employees and their teams that, look, we've done this, we're certified, we're rated. It's got a stamp of approval, and I think that's something that we all need to have. Again, because this is a first time for all of us to go through this. None of us know what the road ahead exactly looks like, but we want to have confidence that we're pointing in the right direction. And whether it's GBAC, whether it's WELL, or whether it's ARC, I think they all can play together, and they all play an important role. So it is something we're committed to doing in some fashion, and have yet to decide exactly which route to go. But I think it's something we all need to have. We all need to be engaged in. And as major league teams and venues, we have a certain set of resources. If I was a community rec center, or I was a little league field, or whatever, I might not have those same resources. So I'm hopeful that ARC can be a platform that people can use to give them the confidence, give them the direction as to what they should be doing, and whether they have the money to do GBAC or they do WELL. If they do, great, it plugs and plays. If not, it's something they can use as a guide and get a rating to feel comfortable and confident that they're doing the kinds of things they need to do to represent their organization, their community, all the constituents and stakeholders that they have to deal with. So it's really a critical factor, I think, that all of us want to have something just behind us saying you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, sure. I'm really glad that, Scott, that you brought up the opportunity for perhaps Little League or minor league stadiums and venues having the ability to use this platform. So Chris, I guess a two-pronged question here. First of all, how will this tool tie into these higher level certifications such as GBAC and WELL that venues can pay money to get certified by? And also, how can this really provide the accessibility for these perhaps lower level, lower tier venues that may not have the resources to pursue a higher level certification?
That's exactly the way we are. I think that you guys have teed it up. I'm just going to actually just kind of put a bow around what you guys said. I mean, ARC is envisioned in the USGBC family as a gateway. It is a place to organize your data, to focus on operational performance, but also as a gateway to certification, whether that's LEED, LEED 0, whether we're going on to something sophisticated like WELL, or whether it's GBAC, whatever that issue is, we hopefully are an entry point. Because the fundamental tenets are, we want it to be essentially, we want it to be accessible We want it to be inexpensive enough that people can come use it. We want it to be not an endpoint, but a beginning, a place where you get your documentation in order, you see those list of options, you get your head around the kinds of things that people want to know. And then we think that certification level is that step up where now you have a third-party human actually looking at your data. You probably are using rigorous health thresholds at that point, which as an industry, we're still, as with the IWBI folks, we're still setting those thresholds. And so I think we can work in advance as those processes go through and those advisory groups kind of decide what those thresholds are, decide what that review process is, and whether it's LEED, WELL, GBAC, or whatever the next thing is, we hopefully can develop those ways to feed in. And that also is kind of very much baked into ARC. I mean, we feed information every single day to GBCI reviewers using a variety of rating systems. And so when they're ready and they have the criteria, we're ready to support them in that way. I think we're in a, hopefully it doesn't sound bad, but we want to be the Toyota Corolla in this. We want to be the thing that people can drive off the lot we hope you move up to something a little, move up to the car you want later on.
It's a good analogy, Chris. Let's wrap this up on the final question of the round robin here before handing it back to you, Chris, to really walk through the tool. Scott, let's start with you on this. We've already mentioned the ability to take this tool and continue to pursue the health and safety standards from local regulations and authority agencies. I guess, what's your current plan for your facility to ensure that the health and safety requirements do not compromise the environmental leadership of Mercedes-Benz Stadium and all of the environmental initiatives that you've put into place from a leadership perspective over the past 5 years?
That's a good question. Being LEED Platinum certified for new construction and just the standard of how we like to operate the building, of course, we want it all. We want to be the best entertainment, we want to have the safest place, and we want to be environmentally responsible at the highest level. And I think this, as I mentioned earlier, this opportunity gives us a chance to really prioritize green cleaning and prioritize indoor air quality. And obviously safety is first, but when you spend the time to really dive into that, you can find ways to clean that are really effective, really sanitize things, but also solve the environmental side of that too. It's safe for the people working with the chemicals. It's safe for the occupancy of the space. It's cost effective. So I think when we focus on things, we obviously can move forward and improve our operations. So it's giving us that ability to do that, to rethink of how do we apply chemicals. We're looking at drone technology to sanitize a seating bowl and amazingly fast using an ionizing spray from a drone. And those are things we didn't think about 6 months ago, but we're thinking about it now because of this COVID issue. So indoor air quality, obviously we need indoor air changes, we need the right temperature, we need the right humidity. We're looking at how do we sterilize the air, what are those technologies like? So I think you can raise the bar on both the health and safety and the environmental performance. And the beauty of ARC as a gateway, it can be a lot more than just reentry after COVID. It can be the energy, it can be the water, it can be the waste. And so it's a time to stop and pause and think and recommit ourselves and put the effort forward to kind of go the next step and to be able to provide value to our members in this reentry process, to get all these projects registered, to get them familiar with the technology and the value of it. And then I think in the future we'll be pushing other avenues, other parts of what ARC provides. So I think it's an exciting time, and I also think it's a time for us to reach out to a much broader base of venues. We have a big membership in the Green Sports Alliance. We're blessed to have almost every professional sports team and venue as a member in North America, and a lot of international venues and a lot of other venues, collegiate venues. But I think it's a chance to really reach out and communicate with them and engage with them and grow that base. And as we get past the reentry, we're in a perfect position to expand the value of ARC.
Thanks. That's really good information, Scott. And Jackie, same question to you. Mm-hmm. Being such a new facility, can't imagine such huge, wide sweeping operational changes or construction changes, but we would love to hear from you. How are you going to continue to progress some of the environmental goals that you've instated recently at your arena?
Yeah, absolutely. For those who may not be aware, Chase Center had its grand opening back in September, so we haven't even reached our 1-year anniversary of having our doors open. So again, the benefit of geography, this building was built with all kinds of sustainability metrics and commitments made both to the community and to our partners and investors and our fan base. So the positive of those decisions is that we have discovered that all of the green cleaning supplies already live on the list, on list N, the EPA's list N. I'm sure we're all very familiar with that now, the emerging pathogens list. So we don't have to make any significant changes in the cleaning supply chain to accommodate the recommendations of the CDC and the EPA. The air quality is another one that we focused because the CDC guidelines and the ASHRAE guidelines are telling us that 100% outside air is one of the best ways to combat the virus in the air, and continuously circulating air. That's not great for our energy use. I think we can all agree to that. And we're not all in climates that can support having 100% outside air all of the time, or even on a schedule as frequent as every 15 minutes, right? So what are alternatives to that so that we can make sure that we're hitting our metrics and also staying sustainable? We're looking at things like UV lights inside of the ductwork. We're working with our mechanical engineers and our design firm. Since we have very custom ductwork throughout the building, what does that look like actually going into the units or the ductwork itself? We have Atmos Air, even though there's still some back and forth in the industry about whether that bipolar ionization actually kills the virus or not. But we do have it in some of our higher occupancy spaces, like the gyms, the weight room, the locker rooms. So looking to expand that if the science backs it. And also just being aware of anything new on the market, right? Like, the technology is changing so fast. You really have to keep up with it. We have a task force that's solely dedicated to looking at the new technology coming on the market. How can you test the air? How can you test, maybe even do your own testing on site? What would it take to have your own lab? Are there partners out there that we can go to direct so that we can actually stay at the forefront of what's coming at us? And that gets reviewed weekly so that we can keep up with all of the new items that are coming on the market and really stay ahead of the curve and meet all of our sustainability and environmental criteria.
Hey, Brett, if I could just add to that, you know, without COVID, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right?
No.
And when I opened up a document that ASHRAE put out about COVID-19 and how important filtration was and air changes and all that stuff, and UVC versus bipolar ionization, we wouldn't have those conversations right now if it wasn't for COVID. So that technology is out there. That level of rigor is been there, and now we have an opportunity to focus on it. You know, we're being pushed to do it. Obviously, there's a certain level of stress that's pushing us to perform, but that's how athletics works, right? You apply stress, you perform. And so I think this is an opportunity for our industry to perform at a higher level. And so this is really a great opportunity. While it's stressful, at the end, we're going to be fitter for it and better for it. So, you know, I look at it as a great opportunity. And again, ARC is a great platform where things like the ASHRAE standards or ASHRAE recommendations can be part of a resource that people now know to go to. But if we had not had this COVID-19 thing, people wouldn't be looking at those things. They'd be kind of stuck in their business as usual, but we all know that's not a space we're playing in right now.
Really good point, Scott. And Chris, I think that's just a perfect segue into opening up the tool and being able to walk our members through it and really addressing, you know, how are some of these technologies that Jackie's mentioning, that Scott's mentioning, going to be integrated into this tool, or at least the educational series around it? How can the learnings of Jackie and Scott be shared amongst our network so that everybody can be united? So giving you the floor now, Chris, feel free to share your screen. And just to our members, just make sure to continue. If you do have any questions, we're already getting some input right now, and we'll be having the Q&A shortly after Chris's walkthrough.
All right, and can you guys see my screen? I'm gonna go full screen here. And does that work, Brett? Making sure that that's good to you.
That looks good.
All right, and I just want to bounce off the last two things that Jackie and Scott said, because as we dive in. One is because of exactly the dynamic that Jackie said, it is a terribly difficult time to be, I'm sorry, I don't know why it switched over. Actually, I'm going to turn my video off. It seems to want to fight with my full screen. So one second. This is a very difficult time to be prescriptive. The capabilities are changing week to week. The authorities are being updated week to week. And as Scott said, we wouldn't even be here. If we look back 90 days ago, we were having animated conversations with folks about whether it was sufficient to take annual air samples, or whether they could do every 3 years, or whether they should ask people about their experience on an annual basis or a 3-year basis. That conversation has changed radically in a very short period of time. So I want to honor both. It is a really hard time to be prescriptive. It is a good time for continuous learning on a cycle time that we have not previously had. And it is a time that is maybe not how we wanted to get here, but there are some things to be gained. So in the spirit of getting everyone on the same page, I really appreciate the setup. I want to answer 3 questions for you in very short order. One, I want to tell you what ARC is. So we've been using the phrase ARC. Some of you are familiar with it, some of you are not, and how it is supporting GSA. We are here to support GSA as a partner in this. And so I want you to come away from the next few minutes with a very clear idea of how you get started. Essentially, this is a benefit you can claim. You don't have to pay anything to get started. As a GSA member, you are ready to go. And I want to talk with you about specifically how can you use the tool that we call ARC Reentry. It's new, and I will be very clear with you that we launched it in its current form on June 1, and we have been doing weekly releases of new features as recently as last night. So we anticipate this being a dynamic opportunity to work with you guys. So first off, what is ARC? As Brett and Roger said, and as Scott underscored, ARC is part of the USGBC family of organizations. So we exist to serve USGBC's mission of creating better buildings for people in the environment. We do that by providing a technology platform to measure, analyze, and score the real world performance of spaces, buildings, and places. And so to one of the points that Jackie made, whether we are talking about a locker room, a VIP area, or a whole facility, that is our strike zone. We don't, in the terms of ARC, we don't currently deal with new construction, so it's existing spaces and buildings that are our thing. ARC was built to power lead O&M, and so we do that. Excuse me for a second. We exist to power lead O&M. We also power lead recertification. We also power lead 0, and we connect directly to GBCI review. So in that case, whether it's a WELL certification or something else, we go right to that reviewer's desk when we need to. We also we exist as essentially a piece of middleware. We exist between a growing universe of data providers. I'm sorry, excuse me. A growing universe of data providers like Schneider or Measurable. I'm very terribly sorry. Hold on for a second. I got to cough for a second. I'm sorry, I'm back. So we exist between this universe of, excuse me for that, data providers, including folks like Schneider Electric and Measurable and JCI and Honeywell and some of these folks who are actually down there delivering primary data. And the folks who are actually delivering third-party recognition for leadership, whether that is USGBC, IWBI, GBAC, or other tools like that. So we exist in this thin strata in between. And so on top of that existing platform, over the last 2 months, we have created something called ARC Reentry. And this is specifically, as I'll show you in a second, an adaptation of existing tools to this new purpose. And as folks have underscored, our goal is to provide a tool set that supports the safe and confident reentry into sporting venues and other facilities. So very specifically, that is our purpose. And so if you have ever used ARC before or encountered what we do within Lead 4.1 O&M, we are building directly upon our tools to measure occupant satisfaction, a set of survey tools, and a set of criteria, a very limited set of criteria for indoor air quality, including CO2 and TVUC. So over the next few minutes, I'll show what we have added into this tool set to support this phase of reentry and modified operations. So we have used our survey tools to expand both the strategies and the documentation we are looking for with regard to facility management. We are linking those strategies to information about occupant experience, and we are changing the way we think about indoor air quality to relate to essentially proxies for the management of infection control. And so these are not, we are clearly not measuring the actual presence of disease or something like that. We are looking at how the facility is managed, how people experience it, and what are those proxies for effective management based on current public health authorities. To the point that Brett made earlier, we view ourselves as a starting point on a journey that for some folks may take them to certification, whether that's the new IWBI health and safety rating that's also featuring GBCI review, whether it's a journey that takes them to lead O&M or other certifications that are in development right now. Our role is to focus on self-reported data and documentation. We're not a certification. We're not trying to be. We are trying to provide automated data quality checks to provide feedback and to provide contextual project and portfolio analytics and reports. So just want to give you a sense of the niche that we're working in. And our point is we know that some of you may move to those things, and we want to fully support that. We want to give an entry point that is accessible to everybody. So I want to start by showing you how to get started, and then I'll show you what to get started with. So number one, we have a custom landing page for you guys. It is titled GSA-Reentry on ArcSkoru. This actually is not, we don't have actually outward links. You have to go there either directly or go there from the GSA landing page. Once you arrive, you will find that the only important thing, you'll find a description about the program, and you'll see a Get Started button. I want to show you what happens when you hit that Get Started button so that you feel really confident yourself in hitting that button. So number one, what we're asking you to do is essentially claim your benefit. And I want to show you how the kind of minimum information. So we need to know that you're in, and I want to show you what you're in too. So the first question you're asked is, I'd like to claim my Ready to Play benefit, and here's how. And you may want to click that program participation agreement. And what this is, a 2-page, very simple document that basically says, hey, we'd like to share some information with GSA as part of this program, and we know that you're going to provide us with some training and some engagement over the next few weeks and couple of months, and we know that we're going to use these tools together as a group. So I won't read that whole document to you, but that's behind that link. So I hope you'll check that out. It's really, really basic. It's 1, 2, 3, and then I'll tell you more about what's behind that. But so this is more than a tool. It's an initiative. It's a program. And so by working very closely with Brett and Garrett on the GSA team, we can make that program work. And so the next thing it's going to ask you is, who is your point of contact for this initiative? I just want to explain this really briefly because it's important this is the person who, there are a series of discounts and benefits that come with this program, and this person will be in charge of managing it for your organization. So just tell us who that is. And that's as simple as it. We're just going to use that as a point of contact to manage the benefits for your organization. And the last thing is you agree to hear from us about events and education specific to Ready to Play. Just tell us that you're good with that, and away we go. So within ARC, and I'm happy to tell you more about that, but I wanted to just give you the bare basics. So claim your benefit, tell us who your point of contact is, and let us know you want to hear from us when it comes to scheduling the education. The next piece is, okay, what is this reentry thing specifically? And as I mentioned to you, what it really represents is a new performance category in ARC. So it just like energy, water, transportation, and waste, this is a new category. It's at the same level in our hierarchy. And if you go into ARC, you will see some new opportunities to add data. You'll see a new tab called reentry, and you'll see a bunch of new meters, which are pretty cool. And let me show you what that looks like. I want to run you through the 3 big categories really quickly. And I want to tell you, just set an expectation about what we're looking for. Number 1, it all starts with facility management. And our goal is to create some transparency about the basic strategies that are involved in infection control and how you are referencing and using public health authorities. And so we've tried to create a structure where we can be clear about the fact what public health authorities is your facility using, how are you using them to guide the predominant management strategies, whether it's communication and signage, whether it's cleaning and disinfection, whether it's occupant screening when the time comes, whether it's air supply, as we heard earlier, whether it's HVAC operations, if that's applicable to your facility, whether it's elevator operations, water system restarts, any of these qualities. And we want to grow and share the connection to this very dynamic body of health authorities, whether it's a local government like City of Los Angeles, whether it's a national entity like ASHRAE, or a global entity like the World Health Organization. All of them are kicking in, and we want to be able to keep track of those and relate them to the things that you're doing. This is available to you as a one-time survey that your facility managers would fill out, and then it can be updated as needed. So it includes questions and supporting documentation. And by the way, just to be really clear, this is all entirely private to this program, and so this is not a public disclosure. This doesn't go anywhere. This doesn't leave this group, or it doesn't leave your team. Actually, it's what it doesn't leave. So the next piece are occupant observations, and so we want to make sure that your occupants, how do they experience them? Whether that is your team, your facility management team, your grounds crew, your front of house crew, your back of house crew, we want to understand how they experience it. So we talk about things like scope and group, like what area are we looking at? Are we looking at the front of house? We're looking at the back of house. We're looking at the field, and we're asking targeted groups. And we want to see, do you see with the things that you can perceive, do you see those strategies in effect? And do you see them all the time? Do you see them some of the time? Do you see them never, in terms of what your expectations are? And so we want to be able to link, to use your crew, use your observers, maybe in the future use your visitors as a feedback tool to make sure your strategies are working. And then on the third side, we're talking about the idea of indoor air quality as a set of proxies. Again, we're not measuring directly the presence of disease. We are looking at those authorities and saying, hey, what are you telling us with regard to what we can measure in the air that has been shown, or under some circumstances, to be related to your management regime? So whether that's relative humidity that relates to rates of transmission, whether that is CO2, which gives us some insight about ventilation in certain enclosed spaces, whether it's TVOC that tells us whether that green cleaning program whether our cleaning program, green or not, is overloading the space with maybe unintended pollutants, or whether particulate matter gives us a proxy for our HVAC operation or filtration. We are working very closely with partners to make sure that they can support these kinds of things. And to be very clear, none of these elements are quote unquote required, but they all constitute a piece of a comprehensive management regime. They certainly can be entered manually, i.e. with handheld sensors or partial, or they can be answered, in some cases, addressed through an existing building automation system, and in some cases through a dedicated sensor network. So these are all in play right now. And then at the end of the day, the goal is to link your management intention with outcomes. Sometimes that is about making sure that we understand what the intention is. Sometimes it's about linking the intention to the occupant experience. And sometimes it's about something we actually can measure, and we know that there's gaps. And by working together, we can close those gaps and tighten the feedback between our infection control intention and the real world outcomes, whether they're experiential or measurable. And in the ARC tool, you will also find some new stuff, including this. So this is available to every participant, is a new reentry dashboard. This allows you to track the completeness or comprehensiveness of your reentry efforts day over day at this point, and break it down into facility management, occupant observations, and indoor air quality. And so we have a dashboard ready, up and running as of last night for you in the performance section. This includes the ability to break down the occupant experience. So how are people responding about signage, screening, disinfection products, social distancing, and which group are responding? And the ability to see how much indoor air data you're collecting about different things and what it may tell you about the operation of the facility vis-a-vis guidance from different authorities. And at the end of the day, we know that you are communicating to different audiences. So as I mentioned to you, ARC is not it's only as public as you want to make it. It is primarily an internally facing tool. We have the ability to generate custom reports that you can brand for your organization, that you can distribute as a PDF, that you can take apart. This includes what we call a reentry scorecard that is a one-page summary of what you have going on. So a very, very high-level summary. Do you have these practices? Do you have documentation? Are you asking your occupants? Are you measuring these attributes? And it puts it all in one place at a very high level. There are a lot of variations, and we expect to work really closely with Brett, Roger, and Garrett, and the other GSA team members, and you to give us feedback on what you find useful. As I said, we'll be iterating. This went up last night, and we anticipate iterating week to week as we go forward. I want to wrap up by giving you a real sense of actionability. One, there are tools to act now. You jump into this program and everybody, for free, can collect, manage, and score reentry data, facility management, occupant experience, and indoor air quality. And there is a way to upgrade to get premium analytics and those kinds of things at a big discount through that GSA has arranged for you guys, which is pretty cool. So these are things you can do right now. And I want to stress that ideally this notion of ARC reentry is a cog in an iterative process. Unlike a certification, this is not a once and done activity, but because just like Jackie said earlier, things are changing, and just like Scott was alluding to, we are at an incredibly dynamic moment. So we want to honor that and understand that this is something that, at least for a certain period of time, we are going to be setting these plans and policies. We are going to be executing against them. We are going to be seeing how they work with experience and measured conditions. We're going to be analyzing those results, possibly in groups, as leagues, as peers. We're going to be updating those plans and policies frequently, and we're going to be repeating this cycle. And if we go into it with this expectation that it is not a once and done activity, that's really what this moment is all about. And so I want to conclude on that note, say that ARC reentry is one part of your much larger efforts to return to sporting venues, to return so that we can come back confidently into these places. We are here to help the GSA community do that. We hope the tools we're create value for you. And because this is so rapid fire, we know that we will be successful if we work iteratively with you. Our full intention is that we will be releasing upgrades and modifications of these tools week on week for the next month or two. And so if your feedback is essential at this time. At the same time, there is no need to wait. The tools are there for you to use right now. So Brett, Roger, that's what I have teed up. I'm certainly happy to do live demo, but I have my eye on the clock. And so if folks have questions, we can let that guide it, or we can go from there, however you'd like to proceed from here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. I mean, let's dive into some Q&A because we are receiving some from the members, and Scott and Jackie. Scott, I see you just joined. Jackie, if you could turn your webcam back on, that would be fantastic. We all want to see your face. But okay, let's dive in here. There you are. First, Chris, I guess from a user experience, you already really answered most of these, but we did receive a question around, is there a trial period? We know that you said that it's free, at least to use, and we're curious if you can answer that question from one of our attendees.
It's a great question. great question. So basically, the good news is there's no trial period because it's free out the gate. We wanted to make this as easy as we could to get started, and we're meeting this short-term moment. And so it's part of what we call Arc for All. So we have made this available to everybody. Everybody can create a project. If you like, for instance, with Mercedes-Benz, if you've been a project in the past, you can just keep on trucking with that same project in Arc. It's already there waiting for you. Everybody can add data. Everything I just showed you, everybody can get those comprehensiveness scores and compare them over time. The only place you end up with a paywall type structure is with the advanced reporting, and there are discounts that your GSA membership can unlock in that space. So the bottom line is there's no need for a trial because it's right there. You can jump in and use it today.
Thanks, Chris. Well, Roger, I'll pass this next one off to you. We received a question if the benefits here are really only available to GSA members at the moment. And if you're not a member, how can you get into our working group to be able to aggregate the data into this more comprehensive industry report?
Yeah, we're excited about bringing other folks on to leverage this tool, and there's obviously other benefits to becoming a member of the Green Sports Alliance, but that we want people to come in and understand how they can contribute as they get experience and learn. And so that sharing is really important. So you definitely want to come in through our portal to leverage those benefits. But I think, as Chris is alluding to, this is very dynamic. So the power of collective is our individual learning those best practices, capturing those really quickly, and then integrating it into improving your system. So the power of it is having everybody engaged at some point. So we got Garrett and yourself, Brett, obviously, as kind of leading the program. If you have relationships or need to communicate with those folks directly, they should do so.
Thanks, Roger.
Roger, just to make it easy on people, what's Garrett's email address if somebody wants to fire him an email and find out about membership? Is it Garrett@greensportsalliance.org?
You got it.
All right, so Garrett at greensportsalliance.org.
Brett, can I add a quick? I love that. Actually, and if you want to know where that form goes, it goes to Garrett. but I just wanted to, the difference here is that by adding the GSA groups, they will be able to provide insights at the league and the whole GSA level. That's really the difference. Anybody can individually use Arc Reentry. It is there for everybody. But to be able to get the insights that come from comparing yourself to your peers within the GSA community, that's really where the initiative shines. And also the discounts that come with it are nice. So, but wanted to share that's the real difference.
And the other thing that's probably worth reinforcing is that information is confidential. It's not like we're going to be sharing that with other people. You share it within your own group. Green Sports Alliance has the information, but it's going to remain confidential. So if any information or anything we learn, it'll be shared anonymously or with your approval.
That's right. Nobody is limited to your project team. Absolutely.
So Scott, let me bring it back your way. You mentioned really wanting to be able to communicate this, maybe having the ability if you don't seek certification. We received a question about performance certificates. Maybe this is a question for both Chris and Scott. Scott, first, is that something that would interest you if you were not certified, but you had a certificate saying that you completed something? And then to you, Chris, is that something that's going to be available to our members?
Yeah, I'll start by saying, yeah, I'd love to have a certificate or a score or something that can say yes, we've completed this, we've achieved some level. I look at it a little bit like LEED. You're certified, you're silver, you're gold, you're platinum. It's a rating system. You put in information, you get a score, and then you find out what your grade is, if you will. And it's something you can hang your hat on. So I know we're positioning this, semantics matter. And it's not a certification per se, but some way to be able to share with people that, look, we've completed this, we've achieved this level of performance, and it should give everybody confidence that we're doing the things we need to do to protect everybody.
It's jumping on after Scott. I think it's a great question. I'll tell you right where we stand. If the GSA community, if you guys want something like that and you can help us design it, we do have something called performance certificates, which are single issue things in ARC. We can fold them. They exist today for every other performance category. To be very candid, when we first got into reentry a month ago, one of the stakeholder communities we were working with was did not have Scott's confidence in the role of a certificate. They were very nervous about it, and so we ended up focusing more on reports than on certificates. We are happy to. We certainly can support that going forward. It's not a huge change for us, but it's something that I'd love to talk through a little bit more about exactly what people would want out of that. It just has been and to be just one touch more is that it was a little bit controversial because the Centers for Disease Control and the federal administration put out some very unspecified guidance around something called a certificate, and it looked a little bit like a certificate of occupancy, and it scared people as to what that might be. So I just wanted to share that it's the capability, yes, the specifications, we'd love to talk about it, and with that caveat that there was a little bit of backstory to it.
Great, thank you for that, Chris. And I think the takeaway really is that this is an iterative process, that we really want all of our members' feedback to continue to progress this and make it as valuable as possible. But it does appear that we are out of time here. Thank you all so much for attending today's session. Special thanks to our panelists for the great work you're all doing for our industry. So we really appreciate that at the Alliance. Reminder that the recording is available on our YouTube page. And please, if you're interested, register your venue now. It is free. It's at arcskoru.com/GSA-reentry, and follow along with our Ready to Play webinar series. We're gonna have a nice panel coming up here in about 3 weeks, and you'll each be lastly receiving a request to fill out a quick 5-question survey. And thank you for spending your afternoon or morning with us. We really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day and stay well.
Nice job, Brett.
Thanks.
Appreciate it, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Cheers.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.